For more on this, we are now joined by Wandile Sihlobo, Chief Economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa. And he joins us now via our video link. Mr. Sihlobo, thank you so much for your time this evening, sir. Here in SABC News, let's start off here. What do you make of the South Africa and China agreement which has been signed, particularly that will benefit trade?
Bali, I think our sentiment are aligned with Minister Pakstow to say this is an exciting moment. Because when we look at China, Bali, we're looking at the size of it. They spend around 218 billion US dollars importing agricultural products from the world. And that basket of imports that they get from the world is a number of products that we produce as South Africa. And for a long time, we've tried to increase our share within that market, but without much headway. We are still exporting just under $1 billion, about 0.4% in that $200 billion of the market that they have. And I think now, then, starting this conversation, it begins to lead us to a point where we could see the tariff reducing and hopefully then increase our share in that Chinese market.
And we are also told, Mr. Sihlobo, that when it comes to the agricultural sector, it is the one that will benefit the most. How will this agricultural sector benefit in South Africa?
When we are looking at the tariffs, Bali, that we currently experience at China now, if you are sitting in the Western Cape or Northern Cape trying to get your wine there, depending if it's bulk or bottled, but it faces tariffs of between 14 and 20%. If you are in KZN or Mpumalanga trying to send your macadamia nuts to China, you're likely facing tariffs of around 12% and more on other products again. And I think now then if we are able to get those tariffs lowered and some to zero, what begins to happen then is that our products will be more competitive versus the likes of Australia, Peru, Chile, and many others that are there. And I think it's on that basis then that at least China spends a lot importing food. But of course, if you're sitting in the auto industry or parts of the manufacturing side, I think those are the folks that are somewhat uneasy about this. But I think they possibly are comforted by Minister Tau's point of saying in negotiating the details and the various tariff lines, there will be necessary protection that will still be there for other industries. But agriculture, because we are a net exporter, export-oriented, we're sitting at a position where we will be able to benefit from this.
And Mr. Sihlobo, looking at geopolitics and the tensions in which we find ourselves under, and the tariffs which were imposed by the US on South African goods, does this give a chance for the market in South Africa to recover from the knock it took when we saw an increase in those tariffs when it comes to the US?
Bali, our attitude on this issue of trade at the Agricultural Business Chamber is that we want to build as many friendships as we can across a number of countries. Yes, the United States is important. It accounts for around 4% of our agricultural exports already at the moment. And I'll tell you this, China, with all of the tariffs that it has, it is twice the market of the US in terms of how much of our product go to China in agriculture and how much goes to the US. But with that being said, in the US, we concentrated on a few products, citrus, table grapes, wine, and the others, and we want to retain that. But you are certainly correct in saying, look, there will be now more choice to see that if perhaps you are not making inroads in the US market and you are able to establish a relationship with buyers in China, perhaps some may begin to move some of their products there. But one of the things, Bali, that we haven't discussed much in the past is also the fact that in South Africa, the farmers have actually expanded the area planting quite aggressively over the past few years, to an extent that in our numbers alongside the BFEP colleagues, we believe that the exports will probably be increased by plus 30% in the next 4 to 5 years or so. So opening up these markets, especially bigger ones like China, that will help us a great deal because we will be looking for people who can absorb those products that will be coming out of the farms in South Africa.
And moving to another major issue that we are facing in South Africa is, of course, the foot and mouth disease and the outbreak thereof. When it comes to the impact, how has this had an impact on the industry as a whole?
So the impact is severe, Mbali. Of course, if we were to look at it from the exports perspective, last year we were not yet at the peak for much of the year. Really, things started to be difficult towards the end of the year. If you look at the red meat exports of South Africa, they are likely down by 22%. You compare that with another peak of a foot and mouth disease in 2022-23. At the time, our beef exports were down by 17% or so. But right now, of course, the cases are quite many. There are over 20,000 cases that have been recorded in about 8 of our 9 provinces. The most important thing now in South Africa is making sure that we procure the vaccine once it's in country, distribute it effectively, and we are able to reach as many farmers as we can. And of course, then the state will be leading the path on making sure that the imports of the vaccines come to the country. The second lever is what Minister Steenhuisen was talking about earlier today, which is that the local Agricultural Research Council has started producing the vaccine, but they're still low. They did just under 20,000 doses. They need to increase those doses because ultimately we need to vaccinate about 12 million head of cattle, and not vaccinating once, probably 3 times, and continuing for some time in order to get this virus out. And the last quick point on this is that we are talking here by an important industry. Our red meat industry is around 46 billion rands in terms of a value. Our dairy industry, it's around 22 billion rands. So quite frankly, this is almost half of the farming economy that we are talking about. And I think the speed at which we can move on resolving these challenges will help both the health of the sector, but also the tough conditions that many farmers are finding themselves in South Africa today.
Mr. Sihlobo, thank you so much for that insight. That is Wandile Sihlobo. He's the chief economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa. He was reacting there to that trade deal which has been signed between South Africa and China, particularly, that will benefit South African goods.